Every summer, Minnesota has over 1,000 forest fires. If just one gets out of control, the results can be devastating. In the worst fire in the state's history, over 500,000 acres were destroyed and over 500 lives lost. Preventing such a disaster from happening again is a major challenge for the state's firefighters. So, how do they do it? Early September, northern Minnesota. Fire investigators sift through the remains of another blaze. Fortunately, they caught this fire before it got out of control. But even so, it's possible for fires to smoulder underground for weeks before suddenly flaring up again. So the area needs to be carefully checked for hot spots. The stripped bark on this tree shows this fire was almost certainly caused by a lightning strike. With a third of the state covered in forest, 17 million acres in all, the only way to tackle a fire is from the air. It's 8 a.m. at the Bemidji Air Base, and the pilots are having their morning briefing.
The rains that were predicted didn't materialize last night.
This is one of over 200 fire service stations across the state. In the height of summer, with the forest tinder dry, they have to be constantly ready for the next emergency.
When we broke this fire, I called up.
Their secret weapon is this. This is the CL-215 water bomber. First developed in the 1960s, this aircraft remains an indispensable tool for fighting forest fires. Designed to use short, unpaved airstrips and able to operate at extremely low airspeeds, the water bomber is half plane, half boat. This enables the CL-215 to fly across the surface of water, allowing it to scoop up enough to fill its tanks before dropping it on the fire. The man with the job of flying this beast is pilot Jim DePiero.
The airplane's very maneuverable. It's not like when you land, you're restricted to a straight line on the water. The airplane actually can turn. You can scoop in a river, for example, and land in the river and turn around a corner.
This ability has earned it the nickname the Super Scooper. Meanwhile, at the Minnesota Interagency Fire Center, over 100 kilometers away in Grand Rapids, James Robert Shaw is getting news of another fire.
Air Desk, this is Jim. Can I help you? Okay, where's that located? South side of Red Lake. Okay, you're requesting one tanker and a helicopter to coordinate. Okay, we'll notify them. Okay.
It's his job to coordinate the firefighting effort. Computers provide him with a detailed picture of the area, and this time, it's bad news. The wind direction is driving the fire towards a group of houses. James calls through to the airbase at Bemidji, where Mary Locke takes his call and takes down details.
9434, Township 147, range 31.
She alerts the pilots and briefs them on the fire and its coordinates. First away is a light helicopter, which will survey the area and report back. Next, Jim and his co-pilot fire up the engines of the CL-215 and run through a series of last-minute safety checks.
Switch, wire locked, preparing to deliver.
Moments later, they taxi to the end of the runway, power up the engines, and take to the skies. With a range of over 2,000 kilometers, Jim is able to reach anywhere in the state from his base in Bemidji. Meanwhile, back at Grand Rapids, James is busy coordinating the firefighting effort, deciding how many planes are needed and from which bases they should fly.
What we show here is where we have stationed tankers, which are in green. That would be a CL-215. And we have in yellow would be helicopters.
Once Jim reaches the fire, his first task is to identify a suitable lake. Incredibly, the CL-215 is able to pick up water from a source as shallow as 2 meters. He circles his intended pickup point to check it's free from debris. And then he begins his first run. Getting the run right demands both incredible skill and concentration. He must hit the surface of the water perfectly or he risks crashing. First, he slows the plane to just 140 kilometers per hour. Any faster and he won't be able to pick up the water. Any slower and he risks stalling. As he approaches, he activates a pair of probes, which will scoop up the water. As the plane hits the lake, Jim must immediately throttle up the engines to maintain speed to prevent stalling. In less than 15 seconds, it picks up half its own weight in water, rapidly filling the internal tanks. At the end of the run, water pours from the overflow valves and Jim lifts off from the surface. Now Jim lines up his first water drop. He'll be at a height of just 30 meters, so he has to check for hazards like power lines. He has to fly this low to ensure his drop is as accurate as possible. But he's not aiming for the center of the fire. His target is the edge. He wants half the water to hit the advancing fire and half to hit the forest just in front of it to halt its progress. He has to time the drop perfectly. When he hits the release button, the tank doors open, sending a dense cloud of water onto the burning forest. In just one drop, he covers an area of 1,500 square meters. But one drop isn't enough to put out a serious fire like this. Now Jim must circle back and reload.
They can dump onto the fire, get into the lake within less than a minute. In 10 seconds, they'll have about 1,400 gallons of water in their hopper. So turn around. The fire is only within a mile or a mile and a half, maybe, of the edge of the lake. Dump on that, turn around, and keep it up.
The most hazardous part of any flight is the takeoff and landing. And Jim is flying constantly in this zone. He has to repeat this maneuver every 90 seconds for almost 3 hours, dumping tens of thousands of litres of water. It's tough work in difficult conditions, which demands both stamina and concentration.
It pays to keep a fire like that small if you are going to suppress it. So he came in, and of course their chief advantage is they're dropping 1,300, 1,400 gallons at a pop. And here in northeastern Minnesota, where we have lots of water and many places for them to scoop, they're very effective.
Finally, after 20 runs, Jim has extinguished the flames and stopped the fire in its tracks, saving several homes that lay in its path. He turns the CL-215 around and heads back to base. Another job well done. But with over 1,000 fires to tackle every summer, Jim and the Super Scooper will be back in the air on their next mission very soon.